Bookmates4Inmates is a nonprofit organization based in Palm Springs, California. And the thing that's kind of funny, and I don't know the story behind this, is they send books, new books, to women who are incarcerated in the Texas prison system. There are more than 12,000 women incarcerated in Texas prisons. And I stumbled across Bookmates4Inmates, a woman who has a friend in the Mountain View unit that's down there at Gatesville, Texas, down west of Waco. Had a friend there, and she mentioned it, and this woman posted about it on Facebook, and I ran across this on a Saturday morning. This little meme that said, showing mercy doesn't mean the same as being soft on crime. And I thought that was pretty meaningful. So I took a look at it. I had been to the Gatesville unit with the ministry group. I had visited death row some years back, so I was familiar with the atmosphere in prison. And so I reached out to Rick, who runs Bookmates4Inmates, and I told him I had a novel coming out in August, but I had some advanced copies. I had 10 boxes of books, which was 260 copies sitting in my garage, and asked him if he could use some. And he said, yeah. I said, well, how many would you like? And he said, well, we're emailing back and forth. He said, I'm in contact with 400 women. So I thought, well, okay, I'll send him half the boxes. So I said, how about 130 books? I know it's a random number, but how about that? And he really jumped on it. He later told me, much later, that the night before, he had been preparing books for these 400 women, and there were 127 women he didn't have books for. And he was like, I don't know what I'm going to do here. I'm out of funds. I don't have books. And the next morning, we have this email exchange, and I offer 130 books. And he goes to his filing cabinet. He's got labels and packages for them. And by the time the books arrived, I shipped them to Palm Springs. He also had funding to mail them to the inmates. And so that he did. He mailed that first round of books to the inmates. And the deal with them is they provide a review. They also pass the books around to other inmates. And they write their reviews on these paper because these women don't have internet access, and they can't get on social media or any of that. So they provide a little rating of smiley faces, a review of the book, and a note to the author. And so I got 36 reviews back, and they were very much heartfelt. They were from women who were named Courtney and Eunice and Susan. They were from women who were a lot like me. Some were young, some were a little bit closer in age to me. And I knew that it was very possible and even would have been probable that I could have been one of those women in prison. They wrote about my novel in the most honest of terms. They gave me honest feedback, not flowery. In fact, one of them said, inmates are tough critics. But Cammie's story touched them. One woman wrote, it was terrifying to look back on my past, which was similar to Cammie's, but I was happy and I rooted her on. And I was glad to see her make peace with her past. But one of the inmates, she gave me a great review, great feedback, because she wrote a list of pros and cons, things she liked about the book, things she didn't like. Again, very candid. And this is the note that she wrote to me. She said, Anne Frank wrote a deeply felt statement with which I emphatically concur. Ordinary people simply don't know what books mean to us. Shut up and hear. Reading, learning, and the radio are our amusements. I think that I concur with Rick and with Bookmates4Inmates that showing mercy is not the same as being soft on crime.